December 21st, 1939. Kola River, Eastern Finland, 0940 hours. The forest is so quiet, you can hear frost cracking inside the trees. At 40 degrees below zero, sound carries differently. A boot step snaps like a rifle shot. Breath hangs in the air, thick and white, refusing to vanish. Somewhere beyond the frozen riverbank, Soviet infantry move cautiously through pine and birch, their greatcoats stiff with ice, rifles clutched tight against the cold. Then one man falls. No warning, no muzzle flash, no echo. Just a body collapsing into the snow. The column freezes. Men scan the tree line. Nothing moves. No birds, no shifting branches. Just endless white forest and the whisper of wind sliding over ice. Another soldier turns his head and drops. This is not an ambush. There is no machine gun, no artillery. There is only the certainty that someone is watching and that he cannot be seen. The Winter War is less than a month old, but already it feels ancient. On paper, this should have been over in days. The Red Army crossed the Finnish border on November 30th with nearly 500,000 men, thousands of tanks, and total air superiority. Against them stood fewer than 200,000 Finnish soldiers, farmers, woodsmen, reservists, armed with outdated rifles and little more than white uniforms and stubbornness. Soviet planners expected collapse. Instead, the forest swallowed them. Temperatures plunge past -40. Engines freeze solid overnight. Oil turns to sludge. Steel cracks. Fingers stick to metal. Men who fall asleep without moving simply don't wake up. And somewhere in these woods, something else hunts. The soldiers whisper about it at first. A rumor passed between foxholes. A shape glimpsed at the edge of vision. A shot that comes from nowhere. Finnish troops have a name for him already. Valkoinen kuolema, the White Death. But on the Soviet side, there is no such poetry. Only confusion. Simo Häyhä does not look like a legend. He is short, compact, quiet. A former farmer from Rautjärvi. When the war begins, he is already 33. Older than most frontline soldiers. He does not boast. He does not seek command. He does not even speak much. He simply takes his rifle and walks into the snow. Häyhä carries a Mosin Nagant M/2830, a Finnish modified rifle with iron sights, no scope. Not because he lacks one, but because scopes reflect light, because they force your head higher above the snow, because glass can fog and betray you in extreme cold. Iron sights don't glint, and neither does he. Before dawn, Häyhä packs snow in front of his firing position, hardening it so the muzzle blast won't kick up a visible cloud. He keeps snow in his mouth to hide the vapor of his breath. His white camouflage blends perfectly with the terrain. His body pressed so still into the ground that even Finnish patrols sometimes pass within meters without noticing him. You can almost feel it. The ache in the joints, the slow numbness creeping from fingers to wrists to elbows. Hours without movement, muscles screaming. The temptation to shift, to scratch an itch, to exhale too hard. He never does. Because movement is death. The Soviet soldiers don't know his name. At first, they don't even believe he's real. Reports filter back to regimental command. Snipers, casualties, men dropping in pairs, sometimes trios, across different sectors. Officers demand explanations. Patrols are sent to hunt the shooter. Counter-snipers are deployed. They find nothing. No shell casings, no tracks, no disturbed snow. Some commanders suspect exaggeration. Others suspect panic. A few quietly suggest something worse. That Finnish snipers are working in teams, rotating positions with impossible coordination. But the casualty numbers don't fit. The kills are too precise, too consistent. Always one shot, always fatal, and always from a different angle. On the Kola front, morale begins to rot. Soviet units advance cautiously now, bunching together for safety. It only makes things worse. A single shot drops an officer. Men instinctively cluster. Another shot, then another. Confusion spreads faster than fear. Where is he? They fire blindly into the trees, wasting ammunition. Machine guns rake the forest. Nothing answers back. The silence feels intentional, mocking. At night, men argue in whispers. Some refuse to light fires. Others refuse to sleep at all. Helmets are pulled low, heads stay down. The forest seems closer now, pressing in from every direction. And still, the shots come. Simo Häyhä keeps no tally during the day. There is no time for that. He focuses on breathing, on patience, on angles and distance, on the way sound bends in frozen air, on how men move when they think they are safe, and how they move when they are afraid. He has hunted animals since childhood: elk, fox, birds. War does not change the rules as much as outsiders think. Only the stakes. By late December, Soviet command begins to acknowledge the problem. Orders are issued. Sniper hunting detachments comb the forests. Artillery is called in on suspected positions. Trees are shredded. Snow explodes upward in violent plumes. Still, no body is found. No blood trail, no rifle, no proof. Only more dead. Somewhere in the frozen forest along the Kola River, Häyhä adjusts his position slightly as the light shifts. A Soviet officer steps into view, binoculars raised. The distance is perfect. The sight picture is clean. The trigger breaks. The officer collapses without a sound. And for the first time, far behind the lines, a Soviet commander stares at a report he cannot explain and begins to wonder whether they are facing a man at all, or something the forest itself has created. The reports pile up faster than the bodies. By the end of December, Soviet casualty lists from the Kola front no longer make sense. Men are dying without engagement. Officers are being picked off minutes after taking command. Patrols return shaken, swearing they were watched the entire time, yet unable to point to a single firing position. Maps are spread across command tables. Red pencil marks circling forests, ridgelines, frozen river bends. The circles grow wider. Still nothing. On December 26th, Soviet command issues a quiet directive: neutralize the sniper threat by any means necessary. Counter-snipers are dispatched. Men with scopes, trained in urban fighting, veterans of Spain and Manchuria. They move in pairs, leapfrogging positions, scanning snowbanks and tree trunks for the slightest imperfection. They never see him, because Simo Häyhä does not hunt like they expect. He does not seek height. He does not climb trees. He does not choose dramatic vantage points. Instead, he lies low, almost buried, his body aligned with fallen logs or shallow snowdrifts. Where a trained sniper would look for elevation, Häyhä chooses invisibility. And he never fires twice from the same place. One shot, then gone. You can almost feel the frustration building on the Soviet side. How do you fight an enemy who refuses to appear? The cold becomes its own enemy. Rifle bolts freeze solid. Men urinate on metal just to get it moving again. Eyelashes frost together. Skin blisters and cracks. Frostbite claims fingers, toes, noses, sometimes entire feet. Häyhä endures it all in silence. His fingers swell inside his gloves. His jaw stiffens from holding snow in his mouth for hours. His back, locks into a constant ache. At night, he returns to Finnish lines, eats quickly, sleeps briefly, then walks back into the forest before dawn. He does not complain. He does not slow. Soviet patrols begin to change tactics. If they cannot find the sniper, they will flush him out. Artillery pounds suspected areas. Mortars drop shells blindly into snowfields. Entire sections of forest are turned into splintered wreckage. The ground shakes. Trees collapse. Snow churns into thick clouds. For a moment, it seems effective. The shooting stops. Relief spreads through the ranks. Then, the next morning, a sentry slumps over his rifle. One shot. Silence. The fear returns, heavier than before. Rumors mutate into certainty. Some men insist there are dozens of Finnish snipers, moving like ghosts. Others whisper that the same man has learned to disappear, that he sleeps under the snow like an animal. A few swear they have seen him, only to blink and find nothing there at all. Officers try to restore order. They threaten punishment for cowardice. They promise reinforcements. But fear doesn't listen to promises. It listens to the forest. On the Finnish side, Häyhä's presence becomes something else entirely. He is rarely seen, even by his own comrades. When he returns from the forest, his face is pale, his eyes red from cold and strain. He says little. If asked how many, he shrugs. It went well. That is all. But the bodies tell a different story. Finnish officers begin to realize what they have. Not a symbol, not a myth, but a force multiplier. One man tying down entire battalions. One rifle slowing an advance that tanks and artillery could not break. They do not interfere. They let the ghost work. By early January, Soviet commanders escalate again. A dedicated sniper hunting group is formed. Experienced marksmen, supported by spotters and machine gun teams. Their orders are explicit. Find the White Death or die trying. They move carefully, deliberately. Every meter is scanned. Every shadow questioned. The forest feels hostile now, as if it resents their presence. Then one of them falls. A clean shot through the eye. The group freezes. The survivors drop prone. Scanning desperately. One man raises his scope, and the scope shatters. The bullet passes through glass, skull, and out the back of his helmet. Panic erupts. Shots ring out wildly. The hunters become prey. Only two make it back. They report nothing useful, just fear. Somewhere along the Kola River, Häyhä listens to the echoes fade. He does not watch the retreat. He is already moving, melting back into the forest. For him, there is no triumph, only routine. Then, in late January, the Soviet response changes again. This time, it is not subtle. Orders arrive for full-scale saturation bombardment. Artillery units are instructed to fire continuously across the suspected sniper zones. The goal is no longer precision. It is annihilation. Shell after shell tears into the frozen earth. Snow lifts in rolling walls. Trees disintegrate. The landscape itself is erased. For the first time since the war began, even Finnish observers wonder if anyone can survive inside that storm. The bombardment lasts for hours, then days, and finally it stops. Soviet units advance cautiously, stepping over shattered timber and churned snow. Officers scan the ground, searching for a body, for a rifle, for proof, anything. They find nothing. No corpse, no blood, no trace. Just silence. And somewhere beneath that silence, a man with an iron-sighted rifle exhales slowly and waits. February 6, 1940. Kola front. Just after noon. The light is wrong. The sun hangs low even at midday. a pale disk behind thin cloud, turning the snow into a blinding sheet of white. Shadows are faint. Depth disappears. Distances lie. It is the kind of light that gets men killed. Simo Häyhä knows it. He shifts his position by inches, easing his cheek against the cold stock of his rifle, adjusting to the glare. Somewhere ahead, Soviet troops are advancing again, slower now, more cautious, their movements sharp with fear and fatigue. They have learned, and so has he. Soviet command has grown desperate. Weeks of artillery, counter-snipers, and attrition have failed. The front has stalled. Morale is brittle. Senior officers demand results. Someone, anyone, must end the nightmare haunting the Kola sector. So they concentrate fire. Every suspected firing point becomes a target. Mortars rain down. Heavy machine guns rake the snow in long, punishing bursts. Spotters watch for movement, for so much as a ripple in the white surface. It is not enough. Until at last, chance intervenes. Häyhä fires. The shot is perfect. The Soviet soldier collapses instantly, his rifle sliding from numb fingers. But something is different this time. A fraction of a second, too much movement. A slight shimmer where none should exist. A watcher sees it. A spotter shouts. And suddenly, the forest explodes. A Soviet machine gun opens up, bullets stitching the snow around Häyhä's position. Mortar rounds follow, bracketing the area. The ground bucks and shakes, showering him with ice and splinters. Häyhä does not run. There is no time. He presses himself deeper into the snow as another burst chews through the drift inches above his head. A shell detonates close enough to punch the air from his lungs. Then it happens. A round strikes him in the face. The bullet is explosive. It slams into his jaw, tearing through bone and tissue, throwing him backward. Pain arrives not as a scream, but as absence. Numb, distant, unreal. Blood floods his mouth, teeth shatter. The world tilts and fades. For a moment, the White Death disappears. Finnish soldiers find him hours later. At first, they think he is dead. His face is destroyed. His jaw hangs in pieces. Blood has frozen into dark ice around his mouth and collar. He does not move. He does not breathe. Then barely, his chest rises. They lift him onto a sled and pull him back through the snow, under sporadic fire, racing against time and cold. Every jolt sends fresh blood spilling. He never regains consciousness. Behind them, Soviet troops cautiously approach the impact zone. They search for a body. They search for a rifle. They find blood. They find shattered snow. But they do not find him. Häyhä slips into a coma. Doctors later say he should not have survived the journey, let alone the wound. His jaw has been obliterated. Infection threatens. His weight plummets. For days, he hovers between life and death, unaware of the war still raging outside the hospital walls. On March 13, 1940, he opens his eyes. The Winter War ends that very day. News spreads slowly. The White Death has been wounded, maybe killed. No one is sure. Soviet commanders request confirmation. None is given. Finnish units simply note that sniper fire has ceased in the Kola forests. The silence feels unnatural. On the Soviet side, relief mixes with uncertainty. Some celebrate. Others remain wary, unwilling to believe the nightmare is over. Because there is still no body. In the weeks that follow, details begin to emerge. Estimates are compiled. Reports cross-checked. Conservative figures are agreed upon. By the time Häyhä was wounded, he had recorded over 500 confirmed kills, most with iron sights, many at distances that defied belief. all achieved alone in one of the harshest environments on Earth. And that number does not include those taken with submachine guns during close engagements. Soviet commanders study the data in silence. This was not a unit, not a team, not a trick. It was one man. Häyhä never returns to the forest. His face is permanently changed. Speaking is difficult. Eating takes months to relearn. But he survives, quietly, without ceremony. When asked later how he endured it, how he became something that entire armies feared, he offers no myth, no drama. I did what I was told, he says, and I practiced. But somewhere deep in the archives of the Red Army, there remains a file with no satisfying conclusion. No captured sniper, no proof, no closure. Only a long winter where the forest itself seemed to shoot back, and a ghost they could never quite prove existed. Spring comes slowly to Finland. Snow loosens its grip on the forests, retreating inch by inch from the roots of the pines. Ice breaks along the rivers with a dull, grinding sound. The Kola front, once alive with gunfire and fear, settles into an uneasy quiet. For the Soviet soldiers who survived it, the silence is worse than the noise, because silence means memory. Häyhä wakes into a different world. Weeks have passed. His jaw has been reconstructed as best it can be. His face is swollen, scarred, unfamiliar even to himself. Speaking is painful. Eating is a slow ritual. When he looks into a mirror, he barely recognizes the man staring back. Yet he is alive. Outside the hospital, the war he fought is already becoming something else. Summarized, analyzed, filed away. But for those who were there, the winter does not end with the armistice. It lingers. Soviet debriefings begin almost immediately. Officers are questioned. Survivors are pressed for details. Maps are reviewed again and again. How could a single marksman delay entire regiments? How could he remain undetected for months? How could so many countermeasures fail? There are no satisfying answers. Some blame the terrain, others the cold. A few blame poor training. But buried beneath the paperwork is a harder truth. That doctrine had failed. That arrogance had met patience. That modern armies had underestimated a man who understood his environment better than any machine. Unofficially, some officers refuse to dismiss the legend. They remember the way men froze at open ground, how entire advances stalled at the sound of a single rifle crack, how fear spread faster than orders. Fear doesn't require proof. Häyhä never seeks attention. When promotions are offered, he accepts quietly. When praise comes, he deflects it. There are no speeches, no interviews, no victory tours. After months of recovery, he returns not to command, but to the countryside, to hunting, to silence. The forest that once hid him now welcomes him back. Years pass. The Second World War swallows Europe whole. New battles rise. New heroes are named. Snipers appear on every front, their tactics refined, formalized, studied. Manuals are rewritten, training programs expanded. Quietly, without ceremony, many of them borrow from what one man proved in the snow. Low profile, iron sights, patience over power, environment as weapon. The White Death becomes doctrine. Soviet historians struggle with him. There is no captured rifle to display, no interrogation transcript, no dramatic confrontation. Just numbers that refuse to be ignored, and testimonies that refuse to agree. Some accounts reduce him to propaganda. Others inflate him into myth. But none can erase the effect he had in that winter. On movement, on morale, on the psychology of war itself. An enemy you cannot see is worse than one you can fight. Late in life, Häyhä is asked a question journalists always ask men like him. What went through your mind when you took those shots? He pauses, then answers simply, the responsibility, nothing more. By the time he dies in 2002, nearly every trace of that winter has faded. The forests have grown back. The scars in the land have healed. But in military academies, sniper schools, and quiet conversations between soldiers, his name still surfaces, not as a boast, as a warning. Because the most terrifying enemy is not the one who announces himself, not the one who seeks glory, not the one who leaves proof. It is the one who appears only long enough to remind you that you are never truly alone. In the forests of Finland, during one long frozen winter, Soviet commanders learned that lesson the hard way. They searched for a ghost and never quite proved he was real. End. Subscribe to the War Archives as we continue to bring these forgotten chapters of history back to life.